Guys, welcome back to my channel. For those of you who have subscribed, welcome. For those of you who are new, my name is Olivia. I'm a beauty and fashion illustrator, and in today's video we'll be talking about the tools and the art supplies that I use in my illustrations. So we're gonna start with the paper. The paper that I use, that I've been using for the last 8 years, is Bristol Strathmore. It's actually the smooth Bristol, so it has a smooth texture, and it's the 11 by 17 inches, and it's 100 pound, 270 GM. So if you're one of those artists that are working with markers and color pencils and you like to layer those, that's a great paper to actually work with. I don't recommend this paper for watercolor, unless you're just like adding touches of watercolor. Otherwise, if you're just planning an entire artwork with a watercolor and nothing else, then that's not going to be the right paper for you. Moving on to the first stages of an illustration, I use 2 pencils to actually create the initial sketch, and they're both from Faber-Castell. It's the 4H and the 6H. And these are just regular pencils. I'm not sure if you can see those. I don't use an HB pencil until later on, when I know that that's going to be the final sketch. And what I've found lately that really works for me is using these pencils and adding and marking the areas where the shadows and highlights are going to be placed, because that's going to make it so much easier for me when I go in and color the skin tone. Now, moving on to the skin tones markers, I use 2 brands. I don't really have Copic markers, and the only shade that I bought, because I couldn't find it in any other brand from them, is the E00, and it's the pale fruit pink. That's the main shade I use. I color the entire area where there's a visible skin. And then I go in with the Winsor & Newton. It's the almond and the putty shade. The colors are 0618 and 0819. And then I go in, once I put the midtones and the highlights, I go in again with the lightest, which is this E00 from Copic, and I blend everything in. Now, moving on to the hair. Now, you'd be surprised, but for the hair, I don't really use markers. I use color pencils, and I really like these Faber-Castell. They're oil-based, which makes them very good when it comes to like detailed work, and then hair is one of them. I like the hair on my illustrations to look realistic. So when you actually sharpen these pencils, they get this really pointy lead, and it doesn't break because they're oil based, so they're like more durable, and they hold that point better than the wax based pencils, which are the Prismacolor. So I mostly use these 3 shades. We're talking about the Van Dyke Brown 176, and then Nougat 178, and then Burnt Umber, which is the 280. And I think these are the Faber-Castells. I'm not sure what the collection is called though. Oh, and I do use black in my illustrations. I use black for hair as well, especially around the temples, under the around the jaw area. I use this black. And I blend everything with a colorless alcohol marker, and this is gonna make the hair look more realistic. Now, for the gowns itself or the dresses, I use a variety of of markers. My favorite ones are Arteza, and then I also use Spectrum Noir markers. Arteza, the ones that I really love are the Everblend. I think they are coming with, they do come with like brush nib, so you can actually it's going to make it much easier for you if you find markers that have a brush nib instead of a chisel tip. It's much harder to rend those. So I use the Arteza. I also use Spectrum Noir, and then Sometimes I use Prismacolor markers, but I don't have a lot of those. And again, guys, like when I start an illustration and when I start coloring that, it's the first thing I'm doing is just putting the base layer, which is usually the lightest layer of alcohol marker, and then I go in this exactly as I'm doing is the same process with the skin and the hair. And then I'm going in and add the midtones and the shadows, and then I go back in with the lightest color that I use for the base layer, and I blend everything in. I always use at least 3 colors, so at least 3 shades for the markers. After I'm all done with the blending, I go in with the color pencils with the corresponding colors, color pencils to correspond with the markers, but a little bit darker. So if I'm using like a pale blue for the marker, I'm gonna choose a slightly darker blue for the color pencil, just touch up, and then add the contrast and shadows on that on that particular area. And then I go back in with a colorless blender and blend that color pencil in with the markers. Now, one other thing that I found that's really useful for my art is this brush sign pen artist, it's called. I'm not sure, I don't know who makes these though. It looks exactly like an eyeliner. It's very fine, the tip is very fine, and it's a brush, and then you can add tiny details that are gonna make a difference. I got this in black. I think they are coming in other colors as well. But yeah, and then when it comes to the process for completing my illustrations from start to finish, so once I got those, I got one of those colored, it's all good, done. I'm scanning that. I use a scanner, I scan the picture, I upload it in my computer into Photoshop. I kind of clean it up, increase the contrast, brighten up the colors, because once you scan an image in the scanner, depends on the scanner, but mine doesn't really pick up on those subtle midtones and shadows, so I have to go in with the Photoshop and actually increase that. And then I save that image and I transfer it into Procreate, and I use my iPad to actually add the background. So if you're familiar with my work, all those backgrounds are actually digitally created. I don't create the background on the illustration itself. I rarely do that unless I'm working on a commission and someone is really wanting to have the original artwork with the background, then I can do that. However, that's really tricky and it's very risky, and if you ruin the background, then pretty much the whole entire piece is ruined, so you'll have to start all over again, and I mean, who does have the time for that nowadays? But anyway, I hope this was helpful, guys, and I really hope to see you in my next video. Have a wonderful day.